Now let's demonstrate a behavior when showing list items in this each block we have here in the user list. Now in the project I have a file right here and I named it as this doc.jpg, and here in the user list I will be updating this page content and will assign this image to one of the user, so that in the user list we will be seeing that user with that profile image. And let's do it right here when this load data is called, and if let's say the page number is not defined, so when it is initially called we are not passing any page number, therefore when the component is rendered for the first time we won't have page number, and if we don't have page number, which means we are at the first page, let's update this page objects content arrays. This will have 3 users, and let's get the index 1, which is the second user in this array, and let's set its image. This is user object, so it has image, and let's set it as doc.jpg, and let's also have a console log right here setting image, and let's display this image. So here in this user list item, let's have this implementation. So initially, let's say the image URL will be this one, this assets profile png, but if user has image value, then let's update the image URL as assets and the user image name, and let's use this image URL right here. So saving these changes, and now in the page we can see the user 2 is having this image. By the way, let's not focus to the test output. These changes are breaking our test, but we are doing this one to demonstrate a behavior of the each usages, this each block usage in Svelte. So we are seeing this user list having the user 2 with this image. Now remember, this implementation is only running for the first request. Let's open the console too to demonstrate this. Now this log is printed, setting image. Now navigating to the next page. Now we are listing user 4, 5, 6. This log is not reprinted, but the user 5 is having the image 2. And if we go to the next page, this user 8 is having the image 2. So basically, the user in the middle of this list is having this image. But this setting image is not printed in each of these page changes. So the user 8 or user 5 is never called for the setting image. But if we go to the first page, here it is printing this setting image. So it is only setting this actual image for user 2. We can also confirm this behavior like this. Here in the user list item, we can log this user object with reactive declaration like this. So we can console log user, saving this one. So here in this list we see user 1, user 2, user 3, and user 2 has doc.jpg. If we go to next page, here it is printing the users, but the user 5 is actually doesn't have the image. But in the page, we can see that user has this profile image. The problem is these components, these user list items, are reused. So the users are changing, but the actual elements on this page are reused. And that's why we are seeing that element's internal state is affecting the behavior. We can confirm it like this. So here, let's refresh this page. Let's find user list item here, user list item. So user list here, and in this user list we have the items. So this is for the user one. Here we can see the property user one, and it has this object, and this is user two. But if we go to next page, so the properties are updated. Right here we can see the second user list item is having the user 5 in the props, but that user 5 does not have this image URL. But if we check the local state of this component, here it has this assets doc JPEG. So the problem is coming from this local state behavior. So even the prop is changed, since the local state is not updated accordingly, it is still having this image URL, and we are displaying this image URL. So to fix this issue, we have a couple of options, and one of the options would be updating this local state image URL based on this new user. So we can do it like this. Let's change this to reactive declarations. So this image URL will be assigned based on if there is user image, it's going to be this one, assets plus user image. Otherwise, it's going to be this one. So whenever the user object is changed, this part will react to it and assign new image URL value. So saving this one. Now the user list is showing user 2 with the image, but if we go to the next page, here we can see user 5 does not have that image. And if you go to the next pages, we don't see that image for other users too. But if we go back to user 2, here we can see the image is back. So this is fixing the issue, but the problems we may see in our other applications may not be always this much simple to fix. So instead of a solution like this, we can tell Svelte to reuse component based on unique ID that we can rely on. So let's undo these changes to create the same failing condition. So this was the problematic implementation. So if we go to the next page, here we can see the user 5 is also having the image. For resolution, our other option is to use unique ID in each block right here. Now here we are looping in this content array and taking user objects, and in this each tag we can define unique identifier, and we can do it like this. So after this variable we can add the unique identifier in parentheses, and for our case the user objects, let's see the network logs right here, the users are having this ID and that is unique, so we can rely on to that ID, and we can tell that this each block for each of these items, for uniqueness, make sure to check user ID. So saving this one. Now if I go to next page, here we can see the user 5 is showing the default picture But if I go back to first page, here it is displaying user2 with image. So when using this each functionality, pay attention to this part. You may see unexpected behaviors because of this reuse logic. And make sure to use unique key here. So if the key is not unique, the elements will not be rendered. So we can do something like this. We can say, for instance, we can update the ID of each of these items. So let's say the first one will have the ID 1, the second one will have the ID 1, and the third one in this list will have the ID 1. So all users are having same ID, so this ID is not unique anymore, so this part will fail. Saving it, opening the console. Here we are seeing the error. It is saying cannot have duplicate keys in keyed each. For the scenarios like this one, if our component has its internal state, and if we are using this component repeatedly in these each blocks, then we have to pay attention to this part to make sure it can be reused, and the reusage of that component may end up with unexpected behaviors. So just leaving it like this. So we have unique ID for the user list items, and undoing these changes, and also undoing the changes we have done here. So removing this image URL and directly assigning the default profile PNG to the image we have here. So saving all these changes, and the pages are properly shown. And in test console we can see all tests are passing.